good morning and welcome. I'm Liv and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Global Markets Roundup. Let's first take a look at the US market update from overnight. Benchmark US indices closed higher on Monday, June the 21st, after the Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 580 points as energy and industrial stocks rallied sharply amid a strong economic rebound. The S&P 500 was up 1.4% to 4,224.79. The Dow Jones rose 1.76% to 33,876.97. The Nasdaq Composite gained 0.79% to 14,141.48. And the small cap Russell 2000 was up 2.16% to 2,286.09. Monday's strong show followed a lacklustre close on the previous session when stocks suffered broad losses. It was a record close and the best day for the Dow Jones since March, lifted by industrial and energy stocks and a sign of growing investor optimism in the economy, as the performance of these stocks is closely tied to the economic recovery. 9 of the 11 critical segments of the S&P 500 traded higher on Monday. Last week, the stocks retreated after central bank officials discussed plans to increase the interest rates in the second half of 2023 to curb inflation. Utility, energy and financial stocks had lost the most. However, markets appear to have set aside inflation worries for now, showing confidence that a strong recovery may offset the impact of inflation, which typically affects the profit margins because, of course, of the rising input costs of production. Turning now to some other news, and let's look at corporate news for the moment. JP Morgan Asset Management has acquired the Portland-based forest resources investment firm Campbell Global as it sets its eyes on a commanding position in the booming carbon offset market. Campbell manages vast timberland worth about $5.3 billion US. Now to some further corporate news. Video game retailer GameStop Corp, GME, named Matt Furlong as its new Chief Executive Officer on Monday. He replaces former CEO George Sherman in the role. The stock was down over 6% at market close. Shares of Moderna Inc. jumped 4.86% after the drug maker announced plans to add 2 new production lines at its Polaroid plant where COVID-19 vaccines are manufactured. The financial stocks were among the top movers in Monday's session. Berkshire Hathaway Inc., or BRK-B, rose 1.05%. Visa Inc. gained 1.70% and JP Morgan Chase & Co. grew 1.46%, while the Bank of America Corporation grew 2.32%. MasterCard Incorporated advanced 1.55%. In the industrial segment, United Parcels Service gained 2.78% and Honeywell International Inc. grew 2.02%. Boeing Company rose 3.11% and Caterpillar Inc. rose 2.13%. General Electric gained 3.13% and 3M Company advanced 2.02%. In the technology sector now, and Apple Inc. added 1.19%, while Microsoft Corp gained 1.1%. That should be gaining at 1.01%. Nvidia Corporation declined 2.01%. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company Limited shed 1.23%, while ASML Holdings NV advanced 1.45%. In the crypto world now, Bitcoin nosedived over 8% after China deepened a crackdown on crypto exchanges and miners over the weekend. In the latest warning, Chinese officials have ordered banks to desist from crypto transactions, which they claim could disrupt the financial order. Crypto exchange Coinbase Global declined 3.17% and Ethereum plummeted sharply by 11.48%. Moving on to the top gainers and top losers. Top performers on the S&P 500 include APA Corp, Hess Corp, EOG Resources, Marathon Oil Corp, and on the NASDAQ, top performers were Torchlight Energy Resources Inc., Raven Industries Inc., Moxion Inc., Alset eHome International, and on the Dow Jones, American Express lost 4.25%, Boeing Company, Chevron Corp, Travelers Companies Inc., they were the top leaders, American Express 4.25%. Top laggards on the S&P 500 included Xilinx Inc., Advanced Micro Devices, Biogen Inc., Organon and Co. Turning to the NASDAQ now, Code Chain New Continent Limited, Greenbox POS, Biophytus SA, Intech Pharma Limited, and on the Dow Jones, Merck & Co Inc., Intel Corp, Amgen Inc., and Salesforce.com were the laggards. And now, before I share more trending updates, let's take a short break.
At Kalkine TV, we'll take you to the heart of the Australian equity market. We'll bring you breakthrough stories that highlight volatility, as well as tailwinds building across the length and breadth of markets. Whether space travel will gain momentum, while economies may gradually open amid vaccine rollouts, our experts will share their timely inputs. So join us on this exciting journey of live streaming, financial and stock market news. Kalkine TV.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Liv. You're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Global Market Roundup and we're discussing US stock market report now. Let's look at the volume movers from the US markets. The top volume movers were Apple Inc., AT&T Inc., Bank of America Corp, Ford Motor Company, Citigroup Inc., Advanced Micro Devices Inc., General Electric, Torchlight Energy Resources, Context Logic, Sundial Growers Inc., Alset eHome International, and Microsoft Corp. Now looking ahead to the futures, commodities and bond market. Gold futures were up 0.82% to $1,783.45 US dollars per ounce. Silver slightly increased 0.08% to $25.99 per ounce US, while copper rose 0.49% to just over $4 US. Brent oil remained the same at $74.88 per barrel, and WTI crude gains of 2.48%. The 30-year Treasury bond yields were up 4.16%, while the 10-year bond yields increased 2.9% to 1.492. The US dollars future index decreased 0.38% to $91.85 US. Now it's time to look at the UK market news. The London markets traded on a mixed note amid investors' worries regarding rising inflation and the weak performance of mining stocks. According to the report published by a leading property listings website, the average UK house price rose by around 0.8% between mid-May 2021 and early June 2021. The FTSE 250 listed WM Morrison supermarket shares surging by about 33.88% after the company had rejected the takeover offer of 230 pence a share from Clayton, Dublier and Rice. Outsourcer Capita had stated that it remained on track to post revenue growth for the first time in the 6 years as trading performance had shown accelerated improvements during the financial year, during the 21 financial year. Moreover, the shares climbed by approximately 7.82%. Ocado shares went up by around 3.48% after the company was upgraded by Morgan Stanley to overweight. Hotel Chocolate Group shares dropped by around 0.41% after the company had agreed to take complete control of Rabbit 1745 Limited joint venture. Top 3 volume stocks in the FTSE 100: Vodafone Group, Lloyds Banking Group plc and BP plc. Top 3 sectors trading in green: industrials up 1.08%, consumer cyclicals up by 0.9% and basic materials up by 0.88%. The top 2 sectors trading in red: healthcare and utilities. The currency rates: the British pound to the US dollar 1.3932 and the euro to the GBP is 0.8553. And now, before I share more trending news, time for a short break.
New Zealand is unique, and Kalkine TV is here to bring you all the latest news and trending market updates. Streaming across multiple platforms, so no matter where you are, whether it be at the beach or on the farm, you can count on the team here at Kalkine TV to be your home for accessing the latest valuable insights into global issues that are affecting New Zealanders. Subscribe to our channels across YouTube, Facebook, also visit kalkine.co.nz.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Liv and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Global Markets Roundup. Let's take a look at how the Australian share market is going to trend today. On Monday, in a gloomy session, the Australian benchmark index dropped 1.81% and closed the session 133.6 points lower at 7,235.3. Today, the ASX 200 is set to rebound strongly, taking cues from Wall Street that kick-started its week with a decent gain. According to the ASX 200 futures, the benchmark index is expected to open 1.35% or 96 points higher this morning. The Australian and the New Zealand dollars increased on Monday, taking a much-needed breather after recent losses against the US dollar, buoyed by a hawkish stance from the US Fed last week. But both currencies traded near their respective lowest levels since late last year. The Australian dollar shot up by 0.76% to 0.7532 US dollars, while the New Zealand dollar was up 0.8% to US 0.6985. Australian tech space is poised to rise in today's session, taking cues from Wall Street. The Nasdaq 100 closed 0.84% higher on Monday, depicting decent demand in the technology space. Shares such as Xero Limited on the ASX XRO and Zipco Limited on the ASX Z1P, as well as BrainChip Holdings Limited on the ASX BRN, could trade higher today. On Monday, crude oil prices surged higher on rising demand in the Northern Hemisphere, driven by the summer season. Australian energy players such as Santos Limited, Woodside Petroleum Limited and Beach Energy Limited could be on the rise today. On Monday, gold prices recovered from some losses from its biggest weekly percentage fall since March of 2020. A halt in the rally of the US dollar helped yellow metal gain some ground. Gold miners such as Northern Star Resources Limited, De Grey Mining Limited and St Barbara Limited could provide some relief to investors. On Monday, iron ore futures in Asia tumbled, with losses widening after Chinese authorities initiated an investigation into the spot market as prices of iron ore remained at a higher level despite repeated warnings from the government against hoarding and speculation. The most actively traded futures, the September month delivery contract of iron ore on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange, closed 8.8% lower at 1,121 yuan per tonne. Copper prices steadied on Monday, slightly up from their lowest level since mid-April, as China affirms to put a leash on commodities price rallies. The benchmark copper futures on the London Metal Exchange was up 0.6% at $9,203 after falling to $9,011 earlier in the day. Local miners such as Rio Tinto Limited, Fortescue Metals Group and BHP could be in focus today. Okay, well that's all for now. Stay tuned with Kalkine TV for more live market updates. We'll be back with more news on markets, economy and other diverse themes. Thanks for watching. I'm Liv.